Hey guys, it's Bro You Whack, and every now and then I get a few people asking me for my settings or for me to do a settings video, and I'm obviously flattered by that, and I might do that in the future. I'm somewhat hesitant to do it. It's not like I'm trying to keep my secrets away from you guys and be like, no, these are my settings. It's not like that. I just truly believe that people should find their own settings because it works for them. Just because settings work for a top 500 player or a pro player or a virgin like me doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna work out for you. But that's also not to say that it can't work out for you. So that's why whenever people ask me for advice, at least in terms of settings, I always say the higher the sensitivity, the better, specifically on console. But then it starts a conversation and people bring up the point that you don't necessarily need a higher sensitivity to climb or to do good in Overwatch. Now, if you watch my streams, you know that I ranted about this tons of times, but that's why I'm making this specific video, bringing up the question, do you need 100 sensitivity on console Overwatch to be able to climb? Now, real quickly, I just want to say, if you're a top 500 player, this video is not for you because you have no room to improve. You found what works for you. But if you're a silver Genji player and you're making the argument that you do not need a higher sensitivity to do better, I think this video might just shine light on something that you might not have considered, because when you first buy Overwatch on console and you load up the game, you get a default 30-15 sensitivity. I think that is awful. I think that's stupid because it sets players up for failure, because that is way too low. Well, why is that? Why don't you want to have that low of a sensitivity right out the box? Your reaction time with that low of a sensitivity is extremely limiting, to the point where you're not going to be able to react fast enough when it comes to someone that has not only a higher sensitivity, but is also just a lot more agile. Be it a Tracer, be it a Genji, and maybe a Doomfist, I guess, but those are really the big agile heroes that can benefit from not only a higher sensitivity, but going against someone that has an extremely low sensitivity. So when it comes to a low sensitivity, I won't even argue for you guys, because you should not have the default settings. But then it gets into the conversation, okay, well, how high do you need to go? Do you need to go to 60-40? Do you need to go to 80-60? Or do you need to go to 100-100? And that's where a lot of people have the discussion where you don't need 100-100 to do good. Well, here's my point. When it comes to console specifically, you are limited to two things. One, your sensitivity. That's why I said at the beginning of the video, if you have the default sensitivity, you are already limited. But then even if you go to 100-100, you are still limited, all because of how the controller is built. There is hard plastic around where the thumbsticks are to block your thumbsticks from going any more farther. Whereas on PC, there is nothing stopping you. You can have the world's largest mouse pad and you can still get bigger because, well, there's nothing stopping your mouse from going any more farther. It's just based on your arm length. So in a sense, yeah, there is a little bit of limiting, but there's no hard plastic stopping your mouse from how far you are going to aim. That's why you see a lot of people suggest on PC specifically to have a lower sensitivity, to have that precise movement, because you do have a lot more area to cover when it comes to the mouse. So that's why I always say that if you do not want to limit yourself, at least for the sensitivity, because you're already limiting yourself on the controller itself, if you don't want to have any more limiting factors, you want to try to have the highest sensitivity. And here's another point that I'm going to make. Take two Genjis on the same platform using the same controller, but the only difference here is one Genji has 100-100 sensitivity and the other one has an 80-80 sensitivity. The 100-100 Genji between 100 dashes is going to have more DPS output because they're able to react faster when it comes to a 180 turn. And that is why I say that it's very crucial to not necessarily have 100-100 sensitivity, but just to have a high sensitivity when it comes to those agile heroes, so that you can have more DPS output, because you need to react fast and turn as fast as possible after you just dashed into someone, which is what Genji's all about, which is what Tracer's all about. However, that's not to say that I'm going to attack you and say that you suck and that you're bad at the game if you have anything less than 100 sensitivity, because the only reason why I'm making this video and suggesting you have a higher sensitivity is if you were to come to me, ask me for advice, ask me for my expertise, which we all know isn't the best advice. I've never claimed to be the best player. Then I'm going to suggest to you to have a higher sensitivity. If you can have 100 sensitivity, then I'm going to suggest that, because that means you can react a whole lot faster because you're not limiting yourself. So don't think that if you have a low sensitivity and that if you're climbing that I think you're wrong. No. You found what's best for you. That's why I said at the beginning, if you found your settings, I'm not trying to change that. But if you're losing a bunch of games and you're a Genji main, a Hanzo main, a Tracer main, and you're in bronze, silver, and you can't find your footing, you don't know what's going on, well, there's step one. Oh, but bro, you whack, it's too hard for me to control. I can't get 100. Okay, well, you gotta take baby steps. You gotta raise your sensitivity by 5 for every 5 matches so that you're not just diving into hot water. You gotta let your body get used to the changes. You can't just dive in and expect to be winning hundreds of matches. It's gonna take time, it's gonna take patience, it's gonna take a lot of tears for you to get used to the higher sensitivity. A big reason why I haven't changed my settings to a higher sensitivity. Why don't you have 100 sensitivity, Zach? You're a hypocrite if you don't. Because the time that I would take get used to the higher sensitivity, which I know is more beneficial to me, would rather be spent making YouTube videos. My job isn't to be a top 500 pro Overwatch player on console. My job is to entertain and make videos, and that's what I'd rather spend my time doing. Not losing a bunch of matches because I'm not used to the sensitivity. Now, if you have the extra time to get used to the higher sensitivity and you just don't want to, then you don't want to win. You don't want to win Overwatch games. I might sound a little bit harsh here, but it's just because people argue with me and tell me that I'm wrong. Whereas I don't tell them that they're wrong, I just make my point, and that's why I made the video, is just to make my points and suggest it. Again, I'm not telling you have to do anything, but if you're coming to me, then I'm gonna let you know what I think you need to do. But that's not to say that you can't comment your own suggestions and to help other players out. Again, I'm not the dictator on this channel. We're all equal, we all have a voice, and all our voices should be heard. I'm just saying what I think that you should do, but if you want to take advice from other people, then you're more than welcome to do so. So don't come at me like I'm wrong, just come at the situation like, okay, here's my 2 cents. And I think that will be a lot more better than to say, well, you're wrong, bro, you whack. So I love you guys, thank you guys for watching, more Overwatch videos to come, and bye.